When the Twilight movies came out, did anyone else pretend to be immortal and allergic to sunlight? Well, nobody told younger me the Twilight creatures weren't allergic. Speaking of not knowing, in the early beginnings of scientific revolutions and major discoveries, the unknown caused more chaos and madness than you could imagine. Mass hysteria, irrational panic, and extreme so-called solutions were mainstream. But it was all thanks to fear that created the phenomenon known as vampires. But wait, before we resurrect that part of history, you'll want to subscribe for more bone-chilling legends like this one. Now, where were we? Since the Neolithic period, evidence reports necrophobia or the fear of the dead to be present in Greek culture even now. So around 4500 to 3800 BCE, the concept of these dangerous, undead, flesh-eating creatures came to be, and fed into the hysteria even more. See what I did there? They were known as Vrykolakas. See, the thing about these vampires is that they weren't always formally known as the vampires we know today. Originating in Europe, they came in many different shapes and forms depending on the folklore. But in ancient Greece, they were actually known to feed on human flesh and not suck their blood, sort of like a zombie. Many words related to vampire-like figures across the Balkans and Eastern Europe, however, are denoted by the Slavic root term varkolak, which more so translates to werewolf. Unlike the pale-skinned vampire character of today, Vrykolakas were gorged with blood. However, neither modern-day vampires nor Vrykolakas decay. They just don't age, which means Cher is definitely a vampire. The scary part? Greeks traditionally believed that it was people they knew who became Vrykolakas after they were long gone. So if Vrykolakas are the undead, does that mean all these people would resurrect? Well, not quite. They'd only come back to life if they lived blasphemously or were buried in unconsecrated ground, which was a problem during World War II. Greece endured the Great Famine and 300,000 died of starvation. This caused cemeteries to become so crowded that the Greeks were forced to lay their loved ones to rest elsewhere. Hysteria consumed the living. Trapped by the beliefs that people they knew would become Vrykolakas, ancient Greeks would go to great lengths to ensure their relatives or village folk did not transform. So they would behead or impale them before burial, as to free their soul from becoming the living dead. Some also believed that eating sheep that was killed by a wolf would also turn you into a Vrykolaka, and that werewolves could transform into these Greek vampires too. If they did, of course, they would keep their fangs, because a vamp wouldn't be camp without its fangs. The concept of vampires began to gain popularity around the 1500s in Eastern Europe, and then about 300 years later, in 1897, Bram Stoker released his classic novel Dracula. The craze behind vampires was now in full fledged. Over time, people have actually attributed this legend to sleep paralysis, because these vampires killed their victim by crushing them with their body weight while the victim slept. In addition to not being able to move while experiencing sleep paralysis, some people also hallucinate and see terrifying figures, which would line up with the Vrykolakas legend. I'm shuddering just thinking about this. But as the legend goes, come nighttime, Vrykolakas would go door to door, calling out the names of people who live there and knock on their doors. If the knock goes unanswered, the Vrykolaka will move on to the next house, but the poor soul who unlocks their door would face death. When it rolls around to a few days later and maybe, just maybe, turn into a Vrykola themselves. To this day, some villages continue to believe in this Greek superstition and only answer the door to the second knock. So, the next time someone comes knocking, lock the door, close the blinds, and hide. Because if you open the door, it might just be the end. For you. We hope you enjoyed our episode here at Things of Legends, but boy, are you in for a treat next time. Be sure to turn on post notifications for more myths and tales like this. Happy Halloween!